Okay, so now that we have a basic understanding of how much tax um, you might owe, as well as your filing requirement in terms of that $3,800 minimum. If you're over that, we need to file a return. For the majority of you, and again, it's probably 95 to maybe even 100% uh, of our professional au pairs will use, and this is I know it sounds like a long, scary form number, but a form 1040 NR-EZ. And the I'm going to kind of explain what that means a little bit because I think it actually might make it a little bit not so scary with this long form number. Is that 1040 is our U.S. form that all of our citizens use to pay our taxes. So I, for example, file a form 1040 to report my income. The NR stands for non-resident, so that's what a non-resident person would file their individual taxes. And this is the part that hopefully now you can take a little bit of a sigh of relief, is that the EZ is an abbreviation to say that, hey, this is an easy form. It's not as complicated as a long form. So even though it sounds, we keep adding all these letters onto the tax return form, it, it actually is to simplify it for those that the government feels has a more simple tax return. So Form 1040 individual tax return, NR non-resident, easy, it's easier. Okay, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's easier. Um, so if your stipend is your only source of income, you're most likely going to be able to use this form. Again, if you were in a situation where you have been here a longer period of time, possibly as a teacher or a student, you might have some other responsibilities, and you may or may not be able to use that form.
But the majority of our program participants have not been here, and I think for you, it's going to be very straightforward. We're going to give you the link at the end of the presentation to just go online, download your form, enter the information you will find on there, and then if you made less than $3,800, you don't even have to do it. But with that easy form, you can be done with your taxes in
That's
20
right.
minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it because then when someone struggles with it, then they are not feeling very good about themselves. But yes, it's this form is designed purposely to be simple, and it's designed for non-residents. So understanding that they may not be used to filing U.S. tax returns as often as our citizens and residents um, do. So the form is supposed to be purposely more simple than a um, regular tax return that I might fill complete. And again, that 3,800, and even though I keep saying for 2012, that will maintain in 2013 as well, unless something drastic happens, which I don't think it will. And it probably would go up just a little bit. So they usually adjust it for inflation each year to where next year, for example, and for 2013, and I apologize for saying next year, even though that we're in the current year in 2013. Us tax guys are always a year behind. um, but that will likely be 3,850, for example, or $3,900, and it's usually a round type dollar amount. So that 3,800 will, if you make under 3,800 in 2013, let's say that you maybe are preparing to go back to your home country right now, then you may not need to file for 2013 because you're under that limit.
Mhm. Tim, we have another
Okay.
question, very quick. The question is, how will the IRS know that I got unpaid vacation? So that means how I got less money, and how do I have to prove the payments?
Um, Well, this is your question is the same question that we receive from my other clients on, well, how is the government going to know? And um, we, my canned response is that we are in the U.S. we have a voluntary tax system, meaning that we voluntarily report. Doesn't mean that we have a choice, but it's up to us as taxpayers to report to the government the income that we receive. Um, do they know every dollar that everyone earns? Absolutely not. Um, Especially in your situation, to where you may not have an agreement with your host family to have it through payroll, um, which is, I think, probably the norm, is to not have those types of agreements. And so, yes, the government will not necessarily know exactly how much you receive. They do obviously have, especially in this day and age of technology, listings of who is here on what type of visas. And I believe the J-1 is specific for this type of work. So they would be expecting um, a tax return, and especially since the stipend amount is relatively set for different levels, the government would have a pretty good idea, based on weeks in the U.S., what they might expect, but they would not be able to prove it to the dollar amount, which is why it's up to all of us to keep track of how much our income earned actually is.
And to operate in good faith and be honest with our, financial and tax responsibilities.
That's exactly correct.
The other topic to keep in mind: most parents enjoy the benefits of having a legal, professional au pair work for them, and they also have tax breaks when they do their income taxes. So they can deduct some of the costs they have for their children from their income tax, which means that they will take your information, social security number, and the amount of money they paid you and report them on their tax filings to the US government. So do they cross check? I have no idea.
Well, I can tell you that they do cross check. Do they cross check and catch everything? Absolutely not. Um, but again, especially when we're looking at, how much tax will you owe? Um, so, is it worth $625 on, when you of $10,000, which I know is money out of your pocket, but we all need to have a responsibility to pay the tax. And
also
the
for the
government
future.
is a lot stronger
Yeah.
than we are. And I would assume that, that sometime in the future that you probably would want to come back to the U.S., and you would not, you'd, hate to have a problem in traveling back here. Um, so, yeah.
So here we have another question. If I made less than $3,800, so I don't have to do anything, that's
Yeah.
Tim?
Yes, that you are correct, Maria. That if you're under $3,800, um, you're good. Um, Now, if at 3750, you might want to file just to let the government know that you know don't think I have more than 3,800. I'm telling you exactly what I made. Okay, so by being proactive, even if you don't have to file, you sometimes can make life easier on yourself down the road. But yes, you if you made under 3,800, you don't have a requirement to file. The closer to that number that you get, if you want to try completing the form and you feel comfortable in doing it, then if I were in your shoes, I probably would. Uh, if you made $1,000, you came towards the very end of the year, um, maybe not. But as you approach that threshold, think about filing.
Tim, we got another question. If a candidate returns home and they know they owe taxes, how soon can they file taxes? Because once you're
Yeah.
back in Germany, you don't have a US bank account anymore, and then getting the money to
Mhm.
the IRS in the US, it's kind of a very difficult thing. Can they file
Yeah.
very early?
Well, unfortunately, for example, since we're in 2013 already, and we know that we can file our 2012 tax returns already. Let's jump forward to maybe, like, let's say August of 2013, and maybe one of the professional au pairs has gone back to their home country, and they would like to take care of their U.S. tax obligation because it's fresh on their mind. Unfortunately, it would be a great thing to be able to do, but I don't believe that you can file your 2013 tax returns until the middle of January. And so even though you go back to your home country and you want to take care of that tax, you have to hold tight until January 2014 in this instance, primarily because there's not even the tax form that's available yet, um, which I know that creates problems for writing a check to the U.S. You know with your foreign account, and you might have to work through your bank to be able to get a check in U.S. funds. Um, but that is how it would work. So unfortunately, we're not able to file uh, during 2013 our 2013 taxes.
Well, thank you so much, Tim. That's really helpful.
So
Oh,
so here is the nuts and bolts.
step by step.
Yeah, this is the step by step on it, which you have this, and I'm assuming that we'll probably get the presentation available to everyone
Hmm.
to help you out. But I know that this is small, and you can tell an accountant put it together because it looks like just a bunch of words on a piece of paper. Um, but I did want to provide you some, you know, a more of a step-by-step uh, type item. And so the first thing that, if I'm in your shoes, is I'm probably downloading the form on irs.gov, and that's the official Internal Revenue Service's website. So it's our tax collection agency in the U.S. And so you're going to download that form, and I'll show you how to do that here shortly. And then you're going to report your wages, um, your stipend. You're going to do some math. Um, Unfortunately, the form does have instructions on a line by line basis, so you don't even have to refer to the instruction packet on a line by line basis. But there's some simple instructions on the form. Um, and then that line 13, right in the middle of the slide, that's that 3,800 that we've been talking about. Um, so even if you make $4,000, for example, you still get 3,800 that is exempt from tax. So you only pay tax on $200. And so
Tim,
that's our exemption, our tax-free income amount that you get. Yes, Susan.
um, could you pull up the form for
Absolutely.
us?
Yeah. Yep. So I'm gonna go to uh, the IRS's website here. And sorry for all this some of the stuff on the screen here. Let me get to it. Okay, so this is the IRS's website, and so irs.gov. It has all these happy taxpayers that are just excited to file their tax returns and pay their money. Um, so over here in the forms and publications, this is where you download your forms.
Ooh, we have an
We have
earthquake.
a little shaker here in Southern California. So um, but nothing too big. We're going to continue. So the forms and publications, I clicked on that, and then as you can see here, the IRS says is now accepting 2012 returns. If we were to look at this back in let's say August, September of last year, it's not going to say that they're accepting 2012 returns.
January.
They're going to wait until January timeframe, and so it is going to take a little navigation on your part here, and I do have a direct link in the materials that will take you straight to it. But remember, it might be next year that you're back in your home country. maybe the link has changed, and so might have to navigate to the form. So the current forms and publications, we're going to click in there, and then we're going to put the find. That's what we're looking for. So we're going to look for the 1040, and you can see that I do this a lot because I have other stuff already populated in here. But the 1040 NR, so non-resident dash EZ, and we're going to find that in the product number. Okay, so we could find it by title. Revision date you would really never utilize, but product number is 1040 NR-EZ, and we're going to find that. And so on this screen we have both the 1040 NR, the actual form, as well as the instructions, of which you will need the instructions also to be able to calculate the actual tax. Okay, but the 1040 NR is a 2-page form. Up at the top here we have your personal information. So you're going to put your name, your tax ID number here, Social Security number, your address, which if you are currently in the U.S. and you know that you're going to be for a time frame that the government will be able to send you something here, you would put your U.S. address here. If for example you know that you're going to be leaving the state shortly, you would probably be better off putting your permanent address back in your home country. Or if you are already back in your home country, you would put your permanent address, as well as the country that in the foreign postal code. You would utilize this your foreign home address.
Is this a fillable PDF?
Wait, you know what? I don't. No, this is not, it's not a fillable. This is not a fillable form on here.
Maybe if you
but
download
I will
as a PDF.
Oh, you have on yours. You have fillable.
Yeah, you can read it in the explanation.
Okay. On my unfortunately on my viewer,
we have to download it as a PDF because that's just the viewer of the in the Firefox browser. But if you download it as a PDF,
and I'll show you an example of one that is relatively complete, also that I did in my tax software, just because it's easier for me to do it that way. Okay, pretty much everyone is going to be a single non-resident alien. Okay, is your status. Your line 3 is where you're going to put your wages. Line 4 and 5 is going to be blank, as well as line 6 is going to be blank. Line 7, so this is where I'm saying you have some instructions here. So add lines 3, 4, 5, which since you don't have anything on lines 4 and 5, it's going to be line 3. Your stipend wages. Since we don't have scholarships and student loan interest deduction, those are going to be blank on line 8 and 9. And again, we have some math. Subtract the line 8 and 9 from line 7. So line 10 is still going to be your stipend amount. You're not going to have any itemized deductions for the most part. If you do, then it starts getting a little bit more complicated. On there in our exemption amount, I wish that they would put this in there for us, but it actually is different for a married person as opposed to a single person. But line 13 is that magic 3,800. Okay, so that's that exemption amount that we've been talking about. And so our taxable income is going to be the difference between our stipend and our exemption. So if we make $4,000, our taxable income on line 14 is going to be $200. If we make $10,000, then our stipend will be $6,200. Okay, and this is the little bit of the tricky part. Okay, is line 15 in that, and sorry for my emails popping up. So this is the little bit of a tricky part, is that if you look at line 15, so we have our taxable income, which is our stipend minus exemption. Tax, we have to look it up. Okay, so there's a tax table in the instructions that we're going to look up the tax due. So when I said that, the instructions, we need to utilize those, this is where we would do that. So on our instruction sheet, we would scroll down until we find this table that has all of the taxes, the tax amounts. And it's going to be towards the back. Sorry for the fast scrolling here. This is a 33 pages of instructions to fill out a 2-page form. Yeah. Okay, so here's our tax table. And so the way that this works, hopefully my browser brings up the amounts. Okay, so if our tax is $3,000 and you're single, which I think everyone is, then your tax amount will be $303. So if it's between 3,000 and 3,050, the government is going to expect you to pay $303. If, for example, your taxable income is, let's say, $7,000, it's $703 of tax. Okay, and again, this is taxable income, so stipend minus that tax-free amount of 3,800. Okay, so this 7,000 would be that you actually had stipend of $10,800. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to flip over to an actual return. So this here. So I just name, last name, ID number. Okay, your address. Okay, so I'm assuming in this scenario that we have stipend of $13,000. We don't have any refunds or scholarships to report. We don't have any scholarships or student loans, and so we have adjusted gross income. That's our stipend amount still of $13,000. Our exemption, 3,800, means that my taxable income is 9,200. Okay.
Can we ask a
Yes,
question?
absolutely.
So the first question is, what is the identification number? Would that be the Social Security number?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
your Social Security number, and I think does everyone need?
Everybody has a Social Security number.
Yeah, so your Social Security number would be your identification number up here in the right-hand corner.
Okay, and then the second question is, do J-1 au pair visa holders receive a deduction for their educational cost because they pay for their classes to go to school while they're here?
Do they pay, or does their host family pay it?
The host family pays up to $500 towards that education, but most of the time it's more than the $500.
Yeah, so the amount that I believe that since it's a requirement for a professional au pair for the host family to pay that the 500 would not be part of the stipend, but the amount that so it's not taxable to them, but at the same time the amount that they pay over that, they don't get a deduction for it either. So I know that's probably seems like a circular type phrase, but so the amount that the host family pays to the school on their behalf is not going to be taxable to them, so it's not included in their stipend. But they also are not going to, when they pay another 600 out of their own pocket, that does not they're not able to deduct that from their tax return. A U.S. citizen, there are some educational benefits, but I don't believe for non-residents that they're not the same type of deduction.
Okay. And then on the foreign country name, do we have to fill that out
You would only fill
only
that
if we're already back in the home country?
so this corresponds to the foreign country name, foreign country province, state country, and foreign postal code would correspond to the address. Okay, so if you're using a U.S. address, then you would not complete the foreign country name, country, and postal code. Whereas if you are using your foreign, like maybe your permanent foreign address, you would complete that. But not if you're using, for example, maybe your host family's address because you know that you're going to be here for another year.
Okay. So what is the minimum time you should be on that address?
I would say probably for at least 6 months.
Okay.
You know, and um, beyond that, then hopefully you're staying in
Good terms.
good terms with your host family, and if they receive something, then they let you know about that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So um, so this is the you know, so what a tax return for someone that has $13,000 a stipend would look like. So they would owe tax of $949. And so if we recall, I was saying that so if you had 13,000 of stipend, you would owe about $1,000. So the actual number is $949. Excuse me.
And this
So
$949 you got from that spreadsheet we looked at before?
well, my software does it automatically, but let's just check it against the table. So our taxable income is $9,200, and it'll probably be a couple dollars off because there's a couple different ways that we are able um, to calculate our tax, but the tables are the easiest. So 9,200 was our taxable income amount, and it actually is the exact same amount. So 949. So it's on our tax table. So if Form 1040 NR-EZ line 14 is between 9,200 and 9,250, then it's $949. Okay,
Oh, okay.
and so that is the exact amount that is entered on line 15 and line 16. I'm sorry, on line 17 of our tax return. So we owe $949 of tax.
We had a question about the $3,800 exemption amount. Um, where would that information be entered into the form?
So that would be, and I know that when I click on this, it's going to make it small, but everyone see right above my yellow line there, the line 13 is our exemption, and that's 3,800. I wish that they probably should put an instruction, over here next to the exemption to see the tax instructions. Um, but you could also, if you're filling this out with the instructions next to you, and again, sorry for my fast scrolling here, um, but if we go to the line instructions for line 13, I think it was line 13, so exemption amount. So right here, generally you can take an exemption at $3,800 for yourself. And so when you're completing this, you can have, maybe print out the instructions and you can go line by line down the instruction sheet also to help you out. So if you don't remember what that is, then you would go to the instructions and it's going to be there for you. So hopefully so on line 13 right
So
here.
we had a question on where does it say that the 3,800 are exemption? And we just went to this other form,
That's
and
right.
on line
So it'd
13,
be on the instruction sheet. So on the instructions to the 940 NR-EZ, explains that our exemption deduction is $3,800. Okay,
Wonderful.
and if
Thank
we
you, Tim.
remember right, what we got this to the same spots where we can look up the tax return, but we want to look at the instructions to the form. That's what the INST stands for, is instructions to the 1040 non-resident EZ return.
Perfect.
Okay, and so there is some other information that needs to get completed.
So now after seeing the 32-page document on
Right.
how to fill out those 2-page tax filing forms, I think you did a great job on
Good, thanks.
putting all the bullets together on just one single page.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, one-page instruction sheet. So there is a second page to the form, which has more of what I would call general information. So your travel dates, What country are you a citizen of? Um, were you ever a U.S. citizen? Which would obviously probably be no. Were you ever a green card holder? No. A green card holder in the U.S. is someone that is a permanent resident, but they're not a citizen. So these are more narrative type questions that you would complete. Uh, some dates that you can't get, that you were in the U.S. How many days? So keep track of that type of stuff, which is usually not the most difficult thing, especially in your situation, because you probably know the exact date that you came to the U.S. and you know the date that you have left the U.S. So you're just counting the days in between there. Oh, sorry. And you would not have an income like down here on J. You would not have an uh, income exempt from tax explanation for treaties and that type of stuff. But this is more just read the question. If you're not sure what it means, then you go to the instructions and it will explain it. But that's our 2-page uh, non-resident easy return, uh, simplified, as Susan said, into here. Um, it, Whenever you send a check to the IRS, you want to make sure that you put your Social Security number, your ID number, um, on the on the check, as well. Oh, sorry. As well as what you're paying. So if you are paying your 2012 Form 1040 NR-EZ tax, then write that on the check. So write that on the memo of the check, um, and make a copy of the actual check, as well as a copy of the tax return. Okay, this is a real, you could do the best job of completing your tax return, but let's try to make a copy of it, as well as a copy of the check that goes along with it, so you are able to, if there's ever a question about what got filed, you have a copy of it in your possession. Inevitably, I file hundreds of tax returns a year, and inevitably I have to resend in maybe one a year, just because something happened. It got it got to the wrong department and they didn't process it. So we always want to keep copies of what we send to the government, and make sure you sign your tax return also.